What is up, fishing world? Trevor Wagner coming at you today, continuing that series that I started on my top two baits of 2024. Today's focus is going to be on hard baits. So, what were those two hard baits that I used this year that helped put some more bass into the kayak? All right, so let's get right into it. So, my number two hard bait for the year actually caught my biggest bass of the year, and that would be one of my favorite ways to catch a bass, and that is the good old jerk bait. In particular, the one that really did well for me this year, I know it is on the expensive side. It's one of those, it's expensive for a reason, and it's there kind of like what we talked about with the jackhammer. It's there because it works, and that is the Vision 110 Junior. So I really fell in love with the Junior series this year for Megabass. They just really work. Just that smaller profile, just working it, just triggered a lot of bites for me this year. Years past, I could use the standard size and it worked just as well. But just something about this year, that junior size is just really, really good. Megabass also with those 110s, they have a +1 series, and a couple of them also have a +2, which that +1 just means that it's going to dive a little bit deeper into the water column so you can get it down to more of those further down suspended bass and kind of work it through there as they're working along. But again, that jerkbait really did really well for me this year. The other thing about a jerkbait is you get a lot of white bass and other fish that come up and actually destroy the jerkbait as well. Um, there's many different ways to work the jerkbait. You know, you got that twitch pause or twitch pause. I'll do a whole video later how I work a jerkbait, the couple different ways and techniques that I use, my rod and reel setup and all of that, just because it's one of those ways that I really love to catch bass. So again, jerkbait is my number two hard bait. So what was my number one? My number one this year, I can't count. It was a lot of bass that I put in the boat this year, all the way from like late winter, spring, all the way through December, Christmas. One of the ones I'm going to show you actually caught me a lot of bass in December, just before the new year, and we'll talk about that. But that is the old square bill. The square bill is just one of those staples where I fish. The square bill works really, really well. Now there's a couple of different square bills that I really love to use that really, really work. One of the first ones is that one I showed you right here. This little guy right here. If you don't recognize it, that is the Norman Speed N. And this is the color that I love to use is this holy shad color. It just works. The way it just works through the water. It's kind of got, I know it's kind of hard for you guys to hear, but I could hear it really well. It's got a nice little thud to it, not a lot of high pitch rattles, more of a thud. Really does really, really well. And that one really serves me well pretty much year round. Now in the beginning of the year, towards the winter, that late winter, going into that first part of spring, last year I had a tournament at Lake Amistad last March, and this bait I'm going to show you right here absolutely crushed it. It put me in the top 10 for, where did I finish? Finished in the top half. I think I was like 14, 15, somewhere around there at that Lake Amistad tournament. And this little bait right here, if you can see it and look at it, you notice it's a little flat side. And if you look at the eyeballs, you know that this looks like a Spro Little John. And this is a Little John style crankbait that I actually painted. I got some blanks. I got some Little John blanks over last winter. Painted a bunch of them up, and I painted this, I call it a bleeding shad pattern. You can kind of see put some little blood marks on it as it goes through. This guy crushed them. I really enjoyed the fact that I crushed some bass on something that I actually painted. This guy is so beat up, I'm gonna have to like repaint him because he's beyond fixing, but he still catches. I caught some bass on him in early December using him. So it's one of those things where, do I paint it, fix it back up, or do I just leave it all beat up because it's still working in the beat up state that it's in? So that one was really, 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 really good and really fun because I painted it. The other square bill I'm going to talk about that I really caught a lot of bass on, especially when I was in a Possum Kingdom tournament and here in December, late November, December. I don't know what it is about this one in particular. It's probably the smallest square bill I throw, and this is the Bandit Series 100. In particular, this is the chrome with black back, and I also have some chrome with blue back, and they were crushing it. When I was at Possum Kingdom, man, I was having trouble getting a bite. I mean, it's if you've never been to PK, it's highly pressured. There's a lot of people on the water, and I was throwing everything but the kitchen sink. I picked that guy up, and all of a sudden it was just bam, 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 bam. I was just racking them in. So I one of those things. It's confidence, right? So I gained a lot of confidence throwing that chrome and black back and that chrome and blue back because of PK earlier in the year. So from then on, like throughout the year, I've been using it and catching a lot of bass. And it doesn't have a huge wobble. It's a tighter wobble, and I think that helped put the bass into the kayak. So again, my number one hard bait for the year was the square bill. And again, I had those three square bills that really did it for me: that Norman Speed End, that Bandit 100, and then that Little John that I painted myself. Well, that's it, guys. That's my top two hard baits for 2024. That actually kind of concludes the series of my top two for 2024. I did that first series where I talked about the topwater, my favorite way to catch a bass. And then last week and then the last video I talked about the blade baits that we went through. And today I'm just going to end it with the hard baits. I'm not going to get into soft plastics, my top two soft plastics of the year. I mean, you could see the wall of soft plastics. I mean, I just can't pick two. There were so many soft plastics that worked for me at different times and different things and different trailers. So I'm not going to get into that. Not really going to get into the jigs. There was a couple jigs that worked for me, but there was not. I couldn't narrow it down to two jigs that really did the work for me this year. Kind of like with soft plastics, I was experimenting, getting better with my jig fishing, so I really can't narrow it down because I was throwing different ones to figure out which ones I'm really going to like and move forward with. So again, guys, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe down below if you enjoyed the video. Also, what was your top bait for 2024? Doesn't have to be the hard bait. It could be a jig. It could be just maybe it was your wacky worm. But comment down below and let me know what was your number one bait in 2024. Thank you, guys. And if you can, get out and fish and catch some bass.